Buffalo Bills save Christmas and beat the Patriots 24-21 in Orchard Park to go 12-3 on the season. We are going to recap this entire victory and everything that went into it. Let's go.
To my friend Nate and all the listeners of this podcast, no one circles the wagons than Nate Discate. Circle the wagons, Buffalo.
Where else would you rather be than right here, right now?
Hey, hey, let's go Buffalo. Hey, hey, let's go Buffalo. The Bills make me wanna shout.
What is up, Bills Mafia? Welcome to another episode of Circling the Wagons, a Buffalo fan base podcast. I am your host, Nate, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Hey, happy holidays. Happy holidays to everyone celebrating this year, whether you're celebrating Hanukkah, Christmas, whatever the case is. The Bills did not steal this holiday from us because I got to be honest, I wouldn't have enjoyed this Christmas as much knowing that the Bills would have been 11-4. They just lost a game to the 3-11 Patriots in Buffalo after a two games of amazing offensive performances. To lay a dud at home would have been really rough going into the holidays. But they won. A win is a win, and we're going to talk about all of that. We're going to go over our thoughts on the game, the stats of the game, sweet, sassy, molassy plays of the game, our wall of famers and wall of shamers in this victory, and of course, help from those of you on social media that are following this, that are watching this live on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, wherever you're catching this episode, YouTube. Feel free to get in on the comments. Feel free to let us know your thoughts on the game, either general thoughts or as we get into the show even more, your sweet, sassy, molassy plays the game, your wall of fame, wall of shame, Gettysburg of the game. That is the turning point of the game for the Buffalo Bills. And we have all of those to go into. But first, I'd like to welcome my co-host to the podcast, John. John, what's going on, brother? How are you doing, man? How are you doing after this win?
Great. Everything went as expected, right?
Yeah, expected, except I expected them to win by a lot more than they did. Did you think it was going to be this close? Because I did not. I was a little worried just because they were missing a number of starters on the defense again. But I guess I didn't see the Bills' offense struggling as much as it did.
Oh, I definitely bet the minus 14. I mean, they still won, and I was never worried start to finish watching the whole game. The Patriots do have a good defense. I know they had only had 3 wins in the season, and it's a divisional opponent. You cannot divisional games are always big. Doesn't matter how great or bad the team is, they can always go either way. The Bills are still undefeated in that department this year, but no, I think it was great, right?
Yeah, I thought it was going to be a closer game than the 14-point favorites that the Bills win. See, Mario Canito is in already. A win is a win. And yes, I 100% agree with that, especially this late in the season. Your teams are banged up, especially against a divisional opponent. They know you so well compared to every other team, compared to the Lions, compared to the Rams, all those teams. They just know you that well. And I thought the Patriots, for being 3-11, had a really good game plan going in to this game to stop the Bills on offense and to get some things going on their own offensive game plan. I was decently impressed by Drake Maye. At first, I didn't like how well the defense was doing, but then if you think about it, we mentioned the starters being out. They only allowed 14 points up until like the very last, 2 minutes of the game. So overall, they only allowed 1 touchdown in the second half. I thought it was a pretty good game overall by the defense. Looking back at it, they had those 3 turnovers in a row, which were huge for the game. They were the turning point of the game, in my opinion. You had back-to-back-to-back turnovers by the Buffalo Bills defense, and one of them led to a touchdown. So, like you said, a win is a win. It's about time the defense propped up the offense for once. So that was nice to see, but obviously not thrilled with how the offense was doing. Josh Allen has that hand injury now, which we're not sure the severity of that, or it could be an ulnar nerve, like funny bone sort of injury when it landed on the helmet of that Patriots defender. Again, that's it's like a curse and a blessing, right? Watching Josh Allen run the ball is incredible, But then also while you're while you're watching him run the ball, you're scared as hell too. So, and that's the reason why, because these kinds of injuries can happen. So, John, when you look at this for the way that it ended up, I mean, where do you come out as far as, does this change your overall opinion for the Bills? Because I was just scrolling through Twitter, looking at, the tweets of Bills Mafia. Of course, the algorithm always mentions like extremes one way or the other. This is the most amazing team ever. This is the worst team ever. But I was getting a lot of things on my timeline from people I follow and just general algorithm stuff where people are like, this team isn't good enough to win a championship. Like this team is cooked. Like, after the first quarter, and I was like, easy guys, easy, right? I know our motto is circle the wagons, right? But a lot of people were ready to jump ship in the first quarter, at the very beginning of the second quarter, which I thought was early. I mean, hey, dude, I am the last one to judge people for panicking. John, I know you're the same way too. You'll text us in the group chat, be like Super Bowl as soon as they do something well, and then season's over as soon as the Bills fumble or something, right? Or Josh Allen throws a pick, end of the season. I get that. But the second quarter is way too early for me to throw the towel in or say that this team's not ready. It doesn't really change my opinion of this team overall. What are your thoughts on this? Does this win that they barely had against a 3-win team, does that change your overlook or overview of this team, or your outlook on this team, and why?
Spelled it right out. I live play to play, like in the group chat. First quarter, second play, oh, the game's over, they lost, or they won, or whatever that may be. I'm very, emotions on my sleeve for the Bills. But if I were to be honest with myself and honest with everything that's been going on, I need to be non-biased, but this is the year, or it could be the year, even though it was supposed to be a mini rebuild year. Like, they're really good especially on offense. Defense, if they can get healthy again, they've had 3 defensive back starters out, Milano's out again, the whole thing. They get healthier on defense, and if the offense can be consistent, like, I mean, they had that string of 30-plus point games. They're really good. That, like, this could really be the year again. And even if they get the second seed, it kind of really sucks. Like, I keep thinking about like the Bills finally got good again after they're out. Now only one team gets a bye, not 2 teams like it used to be. That really sucks. But this year, even if they get the second seed, Kansas City doesn't look, despite having only 1 loss in the season to us, by the way, but despite only having that 1 loss, they look vulnerable, and they could lose before they end up facing us, and we end up getting all home games anyway if things work out that way. We don't get the bye to get that rest, but maybe the last week of the season we get the rest anyway because we get the second seed locked up at that point. So
Yeah, go ahead.
no, no, go right into what you're going to say because it's perfect.
Yeah, so Matthew Salzberg says on Instagram, I can't bring up, for some reason on this software, I can only bring up Facebook and Twitter. I can't bring up Instagram, but Matthew Salzberg says, this is the year they counted us out as well. The year they said Josh is an overrated quarterback. And that's a great point. Like you alluded to earlier, this is a team that we didn't have high expectations for. I mean, I always expect them to compete and do well, but I don't necessarily expect them to have the sort of offensive output that they have this season, all things considered, and they've come so far and they've done so well. This is a small hiccup, I mean, if you could even call it that. I'm more concerned with what Mario had mentioned in the chat as far as the injuries go. I think the Bills can still make a big step forward in the postseason, getting to that point with some guys coming back. You mentioned Milano's out. Roosevelt Douglas is out. Taylor Rapp is out. DeMar Hamlin. I mean, they had 3 starters in the secondary out. And then, I think it's funny, John. I know we're going to get into this later, but can I just say, I always wondered why Kaiir Elam wasn't playing more often, because when he would get limited reps, it felt like he flashed at points, right? I think about the Dolphins game a couple of seasons ago in the playoffs. Like he had that interception to seal the game at a very tight playoff game against the Dolphins, mind you, in the wild card round. And I'm like, okay, like this guy is showing more then he leads on. And then he got the start tonight because Rasul Douglas was out again. And I thought he was pretty awful. So, we need Russell Douglas back. We need Taylor Rapp back. We need Damar Hamlin back. Like you mentioned, Milano. At one point, we'll get into this a little bit later, I'm sure, but I was wondering why Spector was in instead of Dorian Williams. The only acceptable excuse I'll have for why Dorian Williams wasn't playing every snap at linebacker next to Terrell Bernard is because he was injured and they wanted to keep him on a pitch count. He was on the injury report all week long, which I keep getting, which I understand is probably why they did that. But when Spector went out was when the Bills defense started to play a lot better. And I think one of the main reasons for that is Dorian Williams. He's a really good player, much better than, at least at this point, Baylon Spector. And I mean, I love Dorian. I've loved him since they drafted him. So I want to see him get more run. I think it was more of the elbow injury. So you saw that big, huge cast that he was wearing. So a lot of questionable things. But like you mentioned, KC just keeps skating by. And Matthew Salzberg said on Instagram, they just keep skating by Kansas City. And Kansas City is probably going to be in the way for the Buffalo Bills because of their black magic. By the way, the Buffalo Bills are the only team keeping the Chiefs from having a perfect season, I think, this year. They'll probably end up going 16-1. And the Bills would have had, or the Chiefs would have had the first perfect 17-0 season if it wasn't for the Buffalo Bills. So I take pride in that as a Buffalo Bills fan. I wrote that on Twitter, got some traction. Of course, Chiefs fans were like, hang that banner, man. Hey, I'll hang the regular season banner, but I think when it comes down to it, John, and since, we're on the topic of overview and the season in general and the postseason, I think the next step is obviously a Super Bowl win. That's the goal. But for me to be, I think, content with this postseason, no matter what, I'll be disappointed if they don't win the Super Bowl, but at least I'll be able to justify the way that this season ends is if the Bills can beat the Chiefs in the postseason. And they might not even get a chance to play them if the Bills get the second seed until the AFC Championship game, but that's the marker for me. And I don't know if you feel the same way. Obviously, anything but a Super Bowl win is considered a lost season. So that's been every season of my entire life and every Bills fan's lives. I think, though, that you beat the Chiefs and you send a message and you say that we're for real. And then, if you lose to Baltimore or whatever else, I guess it is what it is, but you beat the Chiefs and that's where you have to go.
Even during the drought, which is ridiculous to say, but like I don't care who they have to beat. It's Denver and then the Steelers and then whoever, or it's the Ravens and the Chiefs, and I don't care. Like they have to win those games in the playoffs and then beat either the Eagles or the Lions or Packers or whoever ends up being there. They got to do it, and that's what it is.
Yeah, that's how you get on to the next level. It's the only way to get on to the next level is to get to those. So again, defense struggled a lot at first, then they got on path. John, I wasn't impressed with the offense, and I know that Josh Allen's MVP odds, if they haven't already, I haven't checked the odds, is going to go down after today's performance. Quick, let's go into stats of the game, and I'm going to show you Josh Allen's stats. We're going to do the Bills stats first. We have Josh Allen, 16 for 29, 154 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. I know that interception counts because it's interception, but it's 3rd and 16 at their own 44. Should Josh have thrown a better ball? Absolutely. I didn't care that much, especially since the Patriots got it down at their own 1 yard line. They ended up doing the tush push on first down just to get out of their own end zone. So I didn't mind that as much. But John, I'm as far as the game plan goes, I mean, we're looking at James Cook had 11 carries for 100 yards and 1 touchdown. He was almost at 10 yards a carry. I think it was 9.1 yards per carry. John, there was a point after he scored that 46-yard touchdown, he didn't touch the ball for another quarter. There were 3 other drives that he didn't even touch the ball. What is up with that? Like, I know you have to set up the run with a pass, but I thought that was almost criminal as far as them trying to get James Cook the ball, because you have to let him cook, and they weren't, and they could have gotten so much more, I think, out of their offense by doing that. What did you notice that at all?
Simply interesting. Cook had 100 yards rushing, and he also had the most yards receiving for the Bills. Ty Johnson had a lot of good carries. I'm not sure if that was like that in between time and he was successful too.
Ty Johnson was doing great to close out the game, wasn't he?
Yeah, maybe that was towards the end,
It was, but he did
but
great.
yeah. So I mean, like it's a weird game. It's one of those. I was really close the whole time, but I wasn't worried at any point that they were going to lose. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm with you. Josh Allen was the second leading rusher, 6 carries for 30 yards. Ty Johnson, 6 carries for 30 yards. Ray Davis, 5 carries for 12 yards. Like you mentioned, James Cook, the leading receiver, 3 receptions on 3 targets for 26 yards and a touchdown. Cook had leading rusher, like you mentioned, leading receiver also. 2 touchdowns on the day. Great game by James Cook. Captain Cook. Mac Hollins, the next leading receiver, 2 receptions on 3 targets for 25 yards. Khalil Shakir, 2 receptions on 6 targets for 22 yards. John, I thought there were a couple of balls that I bet Khalil Shakir would want back. A couple he couldn't catch, but a couple more. I think there was at least 1, maybe 2 drops, which is very rare for him to say. So it wasn't his best day, not wall of shame worthy of a performance, but not his best day. I think we can say that safely. He did have a fumble there too, remember, that luckily it got recovered by the Bills. A couple of fumbles by the Bills offense that was luckily recovered by the offensive line. Dawson Knox, 2 receptions on 2 targets for 22 yards. Ray Davis, Keon Coleman, blah, blah, blah. All right, let's go into the Patriots real quick. Drake Maye, 22 for 36, 261 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. I felt more confident about the Bills defense in this game, even missing starters, because of how well they played against rookie quarterbacks. But I thought that I think I was expecting a little bit more of a dominating performance over the rookie, knowing Sean McDermott and the way he plays, the way he calls defenses. So I guess it just didn't end up going that way, but
that was a couple questions I was actually going to ask you about. Like, what do you think about Drake Maye as a player overall? But also, the Patriots' offensive line, you would think that the Bills would have an advantage over, but maybe at times when they sent extra rushers, it affected May in the Patriots. But if they just rushed their standard 4, it didn't seem like it was that effective.
That was one of my, I don't even know if it's an honorable mention because it was the week before, but the Bills' inability to get pass rush on the opposing quarterback is an issue. I think that's one of the things that holds them back. If you look at teams that make it far into the playoffs, that make it to the Super Bowl, usually there's some sort of pass rusher, good pass rusher, great pass rusher in some cases. I'm thinking, for example, the Chiefs, Chris Jones. You think about, the Eagles when they won, Brendan Graham was a great pass rusher at the time. There's certain players that just kind of stick out. And Von Miller, when he was with the Broncos, remember? He was the MVP that game. He helped them win that game. Von Miller of that season ain't coming through that door for the Buffalo Bills. They have to find ways to manufacture pressure. And I think that when they did, they had success. But it's just unfortunate that their usual game plan is to send 4 and hope that one of them gets home. Well, no one was getting home tonight, unfortunately, with 4. And I think that that's an issue. That's something they definitely have to look at in the offseason, at how can they bolster that line, because they're not getting rid of Von Miller anytime soon. Greg Rousseau is going to be on his 5th-year option. They need to find answers in that pass rush. And AJ Epinesa isn't the answer. Javon Solomon at this point in his career is not the answer. Ed Oliver is hit or miss. Last week he was hit. This week he was miss. You just can't really rely on anyone at this point to generate pressure to any extent. But I thought he played well. I thought Drake Maye played pretty well for a rookie. Honestly, I thought he played better than Mac Jones, better than whoever was before that, or whoever was in between that. Cam Newton, when he was there, I thought he played well. What'd you think?
Yeah, well, I think Drake Maye is a good player, and I think he's going to be good for the Patriots going forward. They just have to put an offensive line and other players around him. And
yeah. I mean, you are always watching the competition, right? So certain players don't really scare you. Like Mac Jones never scared me when he was there. I'm trying to think of other in the Jets. Obviously, Zach Wilson never scared me. Ryan Tannehill never scared me. Guys like that. Tua Tagovailoa, when he's on, scares me a little bit. Doesn't scare me, but I think he has a potential to play really well against the Bills. I think the same thing for right now for Drake Maye. Until proven otherwise, I think Drake Maye is someone that you have to watch and pay attention to as the seasons progress in the division, that he might get better and he could become, a top 10, top 15 quarterback at some point. Luckily, he's not Jaden Daniels. Thank God that the Patriots weren't able to draft Jaden Daniels, but geez, he looks pretty good. I say he looks pretty good. I'd say his ceiling right now, if I was trying to give a comp for him, ceiling might be Kirk Cousins maybe at this point, but that's a good ceiling. That's a great ceiling if you could meet Kirk Cousins. If I see a little bit more, I might say, trying to go above that. I'm not going to bother, but definitely some good pocket movement. I liked him. I like as much as you can like an opposing divisional quarterback. I liked him. Ramondre Stevenson, leading rusher for the Patriots, 12 carries, 60 yards, 1 touchdown. He did have that 1 fumble, luckily. Booty was the leading receiver for the Chiefs, 5 receptions on 7 targets for 95 yards, 1 touchdown. Austin Hooper, 4 receptions on 5 targets for 55 yards. Hunter Henry, 4 receptions on 9 targets for 39 yards and 1 touchdown. So those were stats of the game. So, John, let's go into our sweet, sassy, molassy plays of the game. And by the way, like I mentioned earlier, if you all have a sweet, sassy, molassy play of the game that you'd like to share with us, please do. I'll add in the comments or I'll read it if it's off Instagram. But John, there's a lot of good plays in this game. Mostly, I'd say by the defense, but there were some good offensive plays. What's your sweet, sassy, molassy play of the game?
I mean, there's so many different plays. I think the James Cook rushing touchdown was good because it was a longer one.
That was a really good play.
I think that was pretty sweet.
That was sweet and pretty sassy. First touchdown of the game in the second quarter.
Yeah, and Molassy even.
Even some molassy to go with the season. Some sweet, some sassy, and some quite molassy. I like that. That was one of my favorite plays of the game. I'm going to give the sweet, sassy, molassy play of the game to the Taron Johnson fumble recovery for the touchdown in the fourth quarter. Just because it sealed the game for the Buffalo Bills. It was a heads-up play. Greg Rousseau got good penetration. He caused the backwards pass to be dropped, and although he couldn't get the ball because the guy's like a tree, right? Like he's trying to grab him with those long tree trunks, and he's just so big that Taron Johnson came and made a huge heads-up play. That was definitely my sweet, sassy, molassy play of the game. But there were a lot of good plays. I love that Cook 46-yard touchdown. I love the Cook 4-yard touchdown catch. I thought that was a great play.
Yeah, it was good too. It's hard to argue with good penetration.
That's what she said. No, great penetration. I think so. It's funny. I actually have a Gettysburg of the game, but a couple of other honorable mentions for sweet, sassy, molassy that didn't get it, but were great plays. The Cam Lewis interception in the end zone, I thought was a tremendous play. I mean, that's a swing of at least 3 points, if not 7 points. Could be the difference of the game potentially. Great play by Cam Lewis. I mentioned the Cook 4-yard touchdown catch on third down to make it 14-14. Bass kicking that 50-yard field goal to put us up for the first time in the entire game in the third quarter was a key play right down the middle, splits the uprights. I'm going to go with, so this is my Gettysburg of the game. If you're not familiar with our podcast, the Gettysburg of the game is the turning point of the game. And I think it was in the third quarter, it was 14-14 right after Cook had that 4-yard touchdown catch, 14-all. Greg Rousseau caused a fumble in which Dorian Williams recovered the ball, and the Bills got the ball back in Patriots territory, and that's when they kicked the 50-yard field goal. The offense kind of sputtered, but just that turnover on downs was I think, one of the turning points of the game and allowed the Bills to get the lead. And actually, I think it was key to the Bills' comeback because honestly, without the defense today, I don't think the Bills win. The defense doesn't play as good as it does. As crazy as that sounds, because I didn't think they played great, but like I said, back-to-back turnovers, like they made a huge impact in the way that this game, at least 10 points they had. I mean, the Bills offense scored 17 points, right? They had 24, but they scored 17. The defense scored 7, and then they basically got him in field goal range on that one play. So that's 10 points right there. So shout out to the Bills defense on that one. So let's see. Let's go into our Wall of Fame and Wall of Shame. John, do you have a Wall of Famer in this? Who do you put on your Wall of Fame? A person, a thing, an entity?
I gotta put 2. Can I put 2 people? Mike's not here, so it doesn't matter. I can put one.
You can, dude. Screw Mike. If Mike's here, you can put on as many as you want. Don't let him hold you down. It's the holidays, for God's sake.
The whole team. No. I'm gonna put Cam Lewis and James Cook on the Wall of Fame.
Ooh, those are good ones. Cam Lewis for the interception I just mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, he had a good game overall, even special teams and defense. And then James Cook, obviously, leading rusher and receiver, touchdown, both rushing and through the air. Great game. So I give it to those two.
That's a good one, John. I like that one. I think I had James Cook at the top of mine for all the reasons you mentioned. How can you not? He looked great. Defensive turnovers I had in the Wall of Fame. I mentioned back to back to back. You mentioned Cam Lewis, great turnovers. Not only the Bills defense turning the ball over, but the Bills offense not turning the ball over. Great heads up play by the Bills offensive line. They did give Josh some time again. If Josh Allen does win the MVP, he didn't have a great week for it. If he does win the MVP, I think a lot of it will have to do with at least a good portion of it has to give credit to his offensive line and the way they've been protecting him all season. I think they're a great group. I think Aaron Kromer is the mastermind behind that group. So a lot of credit there. I'm also going to give an honorable mention for Wall of Fame to the Patriots clock management at the end of the game. John, what were the Patriots thinking running the ball or when Drake Maye snapped the ball, he fumbled it. They called it a sack, them not calling a timeout right after. Like I get you want to save your timeouts, man, but you have to optimize them because they lost 30 seconds off the clock from doing that. You call a timeout right there, you lose 1 second. So keeping those 30 seconds, I think, is key. But what were your thoughts on that?
Somehow. Yeah, it seems like one of those things we've been talking about if the roles were reversed, right? And like, oh, why didn't McDermott do this? But it went the other way, and all is well for us this week. So I don't know. Yeah. I wouldn't. I would have done things a little bit differently. Not just that instance, but other points in the game for the Patriots. But I don't care about
It's
the
funny.
Patriots.
I love that Bills Mafia got to see another coach wasting timeouts or not wasting them or not using them at the right times. You know what I mean? Because a lot of different times, Bills Mafia is pretty hard on Sean McDermott, and sometimes it's well warranted. He deserves it. This time, you got to see another coach in a similar situation completely flop, and I think it was good for Bills Mafia to see this and be like, "Hey, I know nobody thinks Gerard Mayo is a great coach yet, especially after a 3-12 season thus far, but he's building a team there. It might eventually be good. Who knows? Maybe it turns into a Dan Campbell sort of Lions team. Who knows? Probably not, but who knows? It was good for Bills Mafia to see that because it's good for all of us to see that. There are some boneheaded decisions by other coaches, and that was one of them, I think. So, yeah, not a fan of that. Wall of Shame. Let's go into Wall of Shame. John, I'm going to start with this one because I know you had a hard time finding some shame to give around. So unless you have one that you want to put out right now before I start my list of that just turned into 7.
I think it was just the number of penalties, even though I think there were a couple that maybe were unwarranted by the refs, but there were a lot of penalties, I thought. So maybe clean that up a little bit.
John, guess how many penalties the Bills had? I'm going to give you an over-under of 11.
Over.
13, correct. That was 13 penalties for 78 yards. Guess how many the Patriots had? Over-under of 4.
Well, over.
Over. It was 5. 5 penalties. 13 the Bills had. I mean, we talked about Kaiir Elam. I mean, Kaiir Elam gave them that touchdown at the end of the game. It was like third down, and he ended up getting pass interference on 2 of the drives on third downs, basically handing that touchdown to the Patriots. And it wasn't even like you couldn't really defend either of them that much. The first one he was holding him. It wasn't as obvious as the second one, but he was holding him. It was a decent call. I'll be honest there. It could have been gone either way, but it wasn't a bad call. The second one wasn't a bad call either. He got in the guy's face. He didn't let him turn around, and he didn't turn around to look for the ball. They're going to call that on you, man. This isn't your first year in the league. You have to look around for that. You see that, that wide receiver's eyes get big, you got to turn around right then, But Kaiir Elam is at the top of my wall of shame for that. Just a rough game. I've went into it before, so I'm not going to go into it even more. But yeah, rough game for Kaiir Elam. The second, John, I don't know how you feel about this. Guys, write in the comments right now while you're watching this, your thoughts on this. I thought that the Bills' red jerseys are awful. I do not like the red jerseys whatsoever. Especially, I don't know if it's just because of the white pants combo. I don't think it matters because I think it's worse when it's all red, when they do that color rush. I think it's all red looks terrible. So I'm not a big fan of the red jerseys. I know they need an alternate jersey, but I love the white ones. I love the blue ones. I like everything but that magical. Trevcore says same. They agree with me. I put a poll out on Twitter. John, what do you think most people, what are your thoughts on the red jerseys, by the way, real quick?
I agree. I agree. I don't like the red jerseys. I think that they were better with the white pants and the helmets and everything this game, and the all red is even worse. But in general, I'd prefer blue or white.
Me too. Me too. So Magical Trevcore also says red helmet, all blue uni. Like I like the idea of a red helmet in general. So I love that idea. You put an all blue uniform with that throwback red helmet, I'm all in. Anything to get that red helmet, but I think it would look sick on an all blue uniform for sure. You can never do that with a red uniform, of course, but and I think that's one of the reasons why they haven't brought the red helmet back because they know it doesn't look good in the red uniform. I saw someone tweeted, and I can't remember who it was, but we were going back and forth. He's like, I would like an all black jersey with a blacked out helmet with a red buffalo. I'm like, that sounds amazing. I've bought those kinds of memorabilia and given it away to Bills fans, like the blackout stuff. I love the blackout stuff. I don't think they'll ever do it, but I love it. Buffalo
I'd,
Nightmare
I'd,
1, 2. But go ahead.
I'd rather just stick with the blue. Like,
The blue
why?
helmet.
No, that's just like
Oh,
the red, white, and blue uniforms. Like, why do we have to tinker with like all blacked out or all red or all this
well,
other
because if you
stuff?
don't go red, you have to do an alternate jersey, and the blue ones are. Well, I guess
Let's do
there's only
red,
one
white, and
type.
blue. Whether blue or white is the primary, it doesn't matter for home or
Yeah, I just
away.
don't like the red one. That's my point. I don't like the red one so
Yeah,
much.
yeah, just do
So
red,
do
white, or
blue and
blue.
white. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
but if you're
blue
looking
or
for a
white.
third one that's not red, what do you do?
No, just do well. If you're gonna do something different, do like a throwback, like with a standing buffalo helmet or the versus the '90s helmet. Like those can be different. But the actual like colors and jerseys, like they should stay true to the, you know, like remember when like the Bledsoe years and going forward from there, like the ugly
Jeez.
blue color that they used,
Yeah.
it
Oh
was
yeah.
terrible.
Buddy, I got one. Do you have any left of those from that era?
Oh no, I burned all that stuff. That was terrible.
Dude, I have one that says Nate Dogg on the back that my sister got for me. So I can't get rid of it. It's a custom jersey. I'm never getting rid of it. But every time I put
Oh
it on, I'm
yeah,
like, man, I wish this wasn't this color. I wish the Bills had better jerseys. And I remember even saying at the time, like, I wish this jersey color combination was better. But
yeah, it was terrible.
so I put it on Twitter. Do you like the Bills red jerseys tonight? Over 500 votes. 36% said yes, while 51% said no. So mostly the no's on this one. 13% they didn't really care about the jerseys, so they don't care. On Instagram, Buffalo Nightmare 123 says red helmets with royal blue, and let's win a Super Bowl. Then who cares? Yeah, dude, you could put them in. I don't give a shit. You win a Super Bowl, you can do whatever you want.
I mean those highlighter colors that Seattle was wearing last week,
Yeah,
and I don't care if they would have, as long as they win a Super Bowl.
yeah, I don't. Yeah, exactly. Strawberry shortcake. I don't care. It's win the Super Bowl. M Delmont 1125 says red uni white helmet with OG emblem. Red uni with white helmet. That's more. I could stomach that better, but it's not a far difference from the white helmet they have right now with the charging buffalo. I do love the standing buffalo. That is my favorite of the two. So I do agree with that one. So I do. M Delmont 1125 also says the veteran jerseys are money. Yeah, the veteran jerseys are money. They'll never use those. Those are just for making money. Those aren't for actually playing in. So that's one of the things the NFL does where they make all this money off the veterans and they give them like 1% of that 1%. They pocket most of the money, whatever. It doesn't really go to veterans organizations. But anyway, that's for another conspiracy theory podcast. Gage Jonathan, my guy Jonathan is in. My second favorite, John next to you, Jonathan Gage, longtime listener, always posts about us. Super cool guy. He says, my wife, he said, I agree, no more red. Then he says, my wife has a red Allen jersey she won't wear because she thinks it's bad luck. Jonathan, first off, I love that your wife actually cares and thinks that it affects the game because my sister's the same way. Like if the Bills are losing, she'll like leave the room and go clean or do something because she thinks it actually helps the team. But I think she's free to wear. I don't mind the red jersey, like wearing it. I would wear one any day of the week. I just don't like the way it looks on the field for whatever reason. It just doesn't. Especially, it looks like the Chiefs. It looks like the Chiefs. It looks like the old school Patriots with Pat the Patriot, on the helmet. Like that's what it looks like to me. It doesn't look like a Buffalo Bills jersey.
Also, like with the color scheme this week, with the red jersey, the white pants, and the helmet and everything, it almost looked like they were like on purpose, like old school Patriots. Like, oh hey, you're coming to Buffalo, but hey, we look like the old you, but we're gonna beat you anyway, type of thing.
Oh,
Kind
you
of,
think it was like a mind game,
kind,
right?
kind of, sort of, but also could have been like a. You could also view it as a taunt, and then the Patriots will have extra oomph to try
Ooh.
to, to beat you, I guess. Bulletin board stuff, which it was a close game, so I don't know, maybe.
The Bills they did definitely get a little bit of oomph from the Patriots today, that's for sure. Felt like it at least. Another wall of shame. I mentioned Kaiir Elam. I mentioned the red jerseys. The offense only scoring 17 points against the Patriots D. Now the Patriots D isn't bad. Like it's not as bad as their offense. Their offense is terrible. They're like 30th in points for and 31st in yards. Like they're not good. The Bills defense made them look better, but they're not that good. The Bills offense is again what bothers me. Them only scoring 17 points after putting up 40 points back-to-back games on the road when you're at home. And I'd like to use the Josh Allen injury as an excuse, but he wasn't injured until the third or fourth quarter. They were struggling the entire game. They started 3 and out and they didn't do much better.
I
So,
feel like I feel like you're being too reactionary. Like the last 2 weeks, all everybody was talking about was, oh, the defense, 40 points, 40 points. And now this week, now you're saying, oh, the offense only put up whatever. And I think they're going to be fine. They got Josh Allen. They got all these. The offense is healthy. The defense will hopefully be healthy going into the playoffs. I think they're going to be fine.
I didn't say this was going to be an issue going forward, but in this game, I think it was an issue, which was one of the reasons why it was so close, in my
Like
opinion.
they
But
just
yeah,
had
I
all these record like 8 straight games, 30 plus points, and all this other stuff. Like the Chiefs only lost this season is to the Bills. Like all these things. Like the Bills are great.
no,
They're,
John. John, no, you
the
have to
Bills are
score.
great.
No, John, you have to score 40 points every single game. I don't care. You have to be averaging 40 points per game. None of this 30 points a game crap with the best point differential in the NFL. That doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter. I want you to win every game by at least 2 scores and score at least 40 points, okay? That's the way it's got to be, or else I lose faith in this entire team and organization. There, I said it. So no, obviously I'm not too worried, but not a great look in this game for the Bills offense. That's all. And that also goes into the next one. Josh Allen's MVP odds will probably have gone down. I haven't checked social media to see what the odds are now or check the sports books. I imagine Josh Allen's still in the lead. He was at like minus 500 or something before this game. And I think the next closest one was Lamar Jackson at plus 400, plus 500. So I think his odds will take a hit a little bit. And I think Lamar Jackson's odds will go up.
Saquon Barkley, right? He's still up there.
Yeah, John, do you even care about the MVP? I know that.
I don't, but and I think it's BS that like a quarterback wins it just about every year with an outside chance of like why can't an offensive lineman win it or a defensive player now and then? It's been a long time, but that has happened. A kicker won it 1 year, but that's been decades. I don't care. I just want them to win a Super Bowl.
I know, me neither. I don't care. I only care in the fact that I want Josh Allen to get the recognition he deserves. But at the same time, I don't care. Josh Allen could come last in MVP voting every single year if it means that they win a Super Bowl. I mean, that is the goal. It would be nice to get him recognition, but I think at this point he doesn't need that recognition. It's pretty obvious that he's a good quarterback and he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. So what do you really want, John? So this is kind of off the board from the wall of shame, but hear me out. If you want a lot of eyes on this Super Bowl, do you put the Patriots or do you put the Chiefs in rather? Sorry, Chiefs, or do you put the Bills in? If you're the NFL. Now, this is conspiracy theory Nate talking, right? And the fact that the NFL is kind of, holding up their puppet strings and saying, ooh, what would be nice for this? What would it's like the Illuminati of like the NFL, right? Like, ooh, let's put things into place for this to happen and this to happen. I think that the Chiefs are always a good story, especially with Taylor Swift, and Patrick Mahomes is basically the face of the NFL. But I think that one of the things that made the NFL great when Tom Brady and Peyton Manning were going back and forth is the fact that Peyton Manning eventually won, eventually got to the Super Bowl. So this is conspiracy theory here, but I think that the Bills make a really good, solid Super Bowl contender. If you're looking at the NFL and you're trying to put things in place, like put chess pieces in place, I think the league's kind of getting tired of watching Kansas City get in, and I think they'd like to see the Buffalo Bills get in.
Always been of the belief that the NFL hates the Bills, but
For sure. Mostly, they usually do.
if they wanted to get a storyline, right? The Chiefs have been to 3 straight Super Bowls. Put the Bills and Chiefs in the championship game for the Bills to try to defeat the Chiefs from going to 4 straight, which was the record for conference championships that the Bills had. Of course, they didn't win any of those. So, like, if the if the Chiefs were to go to 4 straight, then that would be better than what the Bills did because
Yeah.
they've already won them, some of them. So that would be unfortunate. But that would be a good storyline for the NFL if they wanted to do that, right? But AFC Championship game, the Bills got to beat the Chiefs so they don't do 4 in a row like the Bills did. Like, that would be the thing.
Yeah, this year, I mean, Josh Allen has hit a level unlike any other with the attention he's getting on a national perspective, with the attention he's getting outside of football, with getting engaged to Haley Steinfeld. I know that shouldn't matter at all. I agree it shouldn't, who you're dating or who you're married to, but everyone was talking about when Tom Brady married Giselle Bundich, right? Like, so that's a huge thing. So I think Josh Allen has surpassed that sort of like he's a good quarterback. He's a top 5 quarterback. He's a top 10 quarterback, whatever people want to say to. He's one of the best, if not the best right now, depending on who's playing, each week and who's putting up major stats. I think Josh Allen deserves that kind of recognition. And I think the Bills are a good story. It's just a matter of can they stay healthy? Can, the things go their way as far as injuries, finally get some people back healthy for the postseason. Luckily, I don't think that they're trying to rush guys, knowing that they're definitely in the playoffs with at least what the minimum they'll have is the 4th seed. The best that they could do is the 2nd seed, potentially 1st seed, unlikely, but potentially the 1st seed. So yeah, I think there's a lot of things going in their favor for that to be a good story. So, and then also the Bills, the wall of shame, going back to the wall of shame, Bills not putting Dorian Williams in until Spector went out with an injury. That's on my wall of shame. The refs for some, again, egregious, terrible calls. We mentioned 13 penalties, John, and I can think of at least 3 off the top of my head that shouldn't have been called. A holding call on Spencer, what was Osiris Torrance, where they showed it in replay and he didn't hold the guy whatsoever. He slapped his arms down, and I guess that's a holding call. It's a terrible call. What was another one? Was it Taron Johnson? Was there holding on Taron? Oh, it was Dorian Williams. No, I can't remember who. Cam Lewis. There was a pass interference that wasn't pass interference. I can't remember. Some awful calls by the refs again today. Again, they didn't call that fumble. Luckily, the reviewer or whoever was watching overhead switched the call immediately on the field to give the Bills the fumble on that first one. And had they not done that, the Greg Rousseau fumble with Dorian Williams picked it up, that one wouldn't have been called if it was the refs called it dead. It wasn't out. So luckily it went back in the booth or whatever it did in New York. It was called a fumble. All set. The Bills get the ball. That's the way the Bills are going to win, by the way. If AI or whoever's in the booth watching the NFL, because the refs aren't going to give it to the Bills. The refs hate the Bills, like you said.
Here's a question for you. Refs aside, if the Bills were to lose a big game in the playoffs or in the Super Bowl, who would you think would be to blame if that were to happen? That's odds-wise.
The defense for sure, because the defense I feel like has let the team down in every single playoff loss of the last 5 years. But a close second to that is the coaching staff for the game plan they put in place. I mean, injuries they couldn't avoid last year. Can I say injuries is one of them? If I can't say refs, can I say injuries, or does it have to be like a segment of the ball, like the defense, offense, special teams, whatever?
Whatever you think.
I think it's injuries. I think the Bills have the coaching staff in place that they could win any game on any given day. If the Bills do lose in the postseason, I think it will be because of the defense. I'm just not sure if it's going to be because of player execution, lack of pass rush, or coaching for that. I think it's going to be the defense that lets them down at some point. What do you think?
I was thinking special teams. Big kick return, one way or the other. A gaffed punt, a punt block for a touchdown, Rams game, a missed field goal at the end of the game, maybe.
Yeah, special teams is definitely a scary thing. Speaking of which, that goes into my last wall of shame nominee, and that's Matthew Smiley, the special teams coach. This special teams is, when it's really good, it's mediocre in my opinion. I think it's, or at the best, it's ever played under Matthew Smiley, slightly above average. I don't think this is a good team. I don't think he's necessarily a good coach. I think that they could potentially end the Bills postseason by either kick out of bounds or a punt that goes 12 yards or a blocked punt that goes for a touchdown against the Rams, sort of bad, that sort of thing. Yes, that's what I'm worried about. I think I don't like calling for coaches to be fired. Coaches are human beings, just like me or you. I wouldn't want to be fired because I made a couple of mistakes in my job, whatever. But when you consistently underperform like this, like at some point you have to look in the mirror. And I'm hoping Sean McDermott doesn't wait for a huge gaffe in this postseason to be like, maybe Smiley doesn't deserve to come back next year. I haven't really been happy with the kicking team, the return team. I think Brandon Condrington is one of the best returners we've had in a while, but I don't necessarily think that's because of Matthew Smiley's coaching. I think he's just talented. So, what are your thoughts on that? The special teams.
It's kind of weird because, like, during the drought, I feel like we were spoiled. We had one of the best special teams in the league year after year. We had the best punter. He was in the Pro Bowl.
Yeah.
So to kind of like poo-poo on it now, it's like, one of the best, 2 or 3 best offenses and still good defense.
John, we didn't appreciate the special teams that we had. Okay, we took it for granted. We didn't buy it flowers. We didn't take it out to date night enough. It just didn't work out. We didn't put in the effort to enjoy that. And now
Yeah,
it's gone, and now all we can do is wish that we had it.
yeah, it's not the best. Like you look at the 90s, right? You had Tasker and Mark Pike and these guys. They had a really good special teams. The return game wasn't as good though.
Yep, correct. The
But
Bills never had a good returner up
what
until
they
what?
really
Against McGee?
with their coverages and the kicking game, even with Norwood was a really good kicker. Christie,
They've had decent punters. Brian Moorman was an amazing punter.
yeah, yeah, that's what I was talking about earlier. Yeah, Brevin Mormon, but during the drought they had good everything, like that Roscoe Parrish or Terrence McGee returning all these kicks, or the kick coverage units, and Brian Mormon and whoever they had a kicker at the time, Dan Carpenter. Everything was very great, but the offense and defense were so bad.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I guess I'd rather have what we have now. That's what I'm trying to say.
No. Wait, you don't want,
But it,
tread Brian Moorman? Yeah, is that what you prefer
but
than
it would
Josh?
be nice if they had a little bit better like special teams to complement what they have.
For sure. And that's saying something, even with, I think Bass has had a bounce back second half of the season too. I think he showed up. Sure, he's had some misses, but I think he's gotten better, progressively better over the season. I don't know if that's coaching or if that's just him getting out of whatever rut that he was in, personally, psychologically, whatever. I think he's done well, but yeah, just not an impressive team overall. And I don't think it's necessarily the players. So yeah, that's my last wall of shamer. John, do you have any hot takes before we go over some of what's on Twitter? Do you have any hot takes? Anybody on Instagram? Anybody on Facebook, Twitter? Before I go over to the tweets, if you have any hot takes from this Bills win, feel free. John, you got one before we get into it?
Nothing that's hot, just the normal. This is the year of Super Bowl, right? Like it's gotta be
Lukewarm. Lukewarm. Is that what you're
just
saying?
a regular take.
Take. Been in the microwave for roughly 30 seconds. Not too hot, not too cold, warmed up. John,
Yeah.
what's your everyone has a go-to time for the microwave to warm something up. What's your go-to time?
Well, it depends what it is, but so there's all these buttons of the microwave, and I only hit that 30-second button, and I hit it however many times I think. So if I want 90 seconds, I hit that button 3 times. I don't do anything outside of less than 30 seconds. It's like that.
You don't go in between 30 seconds, 1 minute, or 1:30 or anything. You just go, what?
Well, well, yeah. If it's popcorn, like if it's like if I'm if I want to do 3 minutes, I just hit the 30-second button that many times to get to 3 minutes. I don't.
Does your microwave have like the 3-minute button? Like if you hit the three once, it becomes 3 minutes and it goes? Do you have that express cook button? You should
I
check that. That might be.
I only know this one button that says 30 seconds every time I hit it.
This could be your cheat code for your microwave. The 1, 2, 3 buttons, maybe even 4, 5, and 6. I've never gone that high. But if you hit it once just to start, it automatically cooks it for you. Hit the 1, cooks it for 1 minute. Hit the 2, it cooks it for 2 minutes, 3, and blah blah blah. But yeah, I'm with you, John. If for some reason,
I was gonna say there's a popcorn button, but every popcorn bag I've ever looked at have said not to use the popcorn button.
oh yeah, what's it there for then?
I don't know.
Why would you put the popcorn setting on the popcorn microwave? So I like to do so. I'm with you. 30-second, add 30-second button is my favorite button. In fact, when we had to buy a new microwave like 4 years ago, that was one of the criteria that I bought was that I had the add 30-second button because I was so used to using it. Now, when I don't have the add 30-second button, my go-to is seconds. Boom, boom, start. I don't like to go 38, 34, 30, 30, same button, boop, boop, start. How much different can 33 seconds be than 38 seconds or 34 seconds or 36? Just like, I need to save time, boop, boop. There's so many other ways in my life I should try to save time than that.
You know where it does make a difference is if you're trying to soften some butter in the microwave. That's like I can never figure that out because like if you go like 2 seconds too long, it's all melted. like it's the whole stick is gone. Or like it but if you're like 2 seconds the other way, it's like rock hard. I can't figure it out. I don't know what to do.
It's like, it's like 12 seconds is like just a puddle. There's all liquid. But if it's like 9 seconds, it's like you haven't done anything to it. There's no butter's a good one. Butter's very fickle, John. It's very you either there's only two phases of butter. Complete solid stick in the microwave or puddle and now you just have hot butter. To the hot takes for the Buffalo Bills, Magical Trevcore on Instagram says hot takes. These last two games are garbage time and we shouldn't risk further injuries. Limited snaps for starters to finish the season. John, I can't disagree with that take. I kind of man, I want Josh Allen to get healthy. That right hand injury, hopefully it's not a lingering injury. All things considered, I mean, you have to play for the second seed, hopefully the first seed, but at least the second seed to get home field advantage. But man, there's definitely I'd rather them play it safe at this point against the Jets one more time and the Patriots than I would them risk another injury. So yeah, I can't disagree with that. I like that one. On Twitter, going over to Twitter, if you're not following us, please do. We're at CTW Pod on all social media platforms. On Twitter at CTW Pod, like Circling the Wagons podcast. And after every podcast, I put on Twitter, what's your hot take in this win or loss? And you guys all come in, help us share in this one. I'm going to refresh it real quick to get in some of the newer replies since I opened it. We're going to go from there. So Angel Aguiar says Elam is hurting the Bills defense. I agree. It's not necessarily a hot take, but I agree. NBA Hoops Online, a win is a win. Absolutely. Again, we kind of mentioned that at the beginning. We're happy to come out with a win, but hey, there's still some things to criticize. T at Built in Buffalo, she says, I hate the refs. Yeah. Bills, you have to figure are going to be playing, especially if they play the Chiefs in the playoffs. You got to figure they're playing the Chiefs and the refs, just like normal. Swank 24/7 at Buff Fandemonium. My guy Swank says, oh Lord, take the win, but Josh Allen's hands, as we found out before this game, that Josh Allen had a broken left hand for most of the season. That's great. That is concerning. And then he says, number 2, Dorian Williams' timing is amazing. I like Dorian Williams a lot. Good calls by Swank there. Tom Z says, hold off the Patriots. Well, at least there is one thing they didn't get flagged for. Andrew Freeman says, I don't think the Bills really took this game seriously, and it showed. I do really hope the Pats keep Gerard Mayo. Him and the backwards pass are the reason the Bills won today, in my opinion. I like that one a lot. From Andrew Freeman. There is a good point there from Andrew that the Bills may not have taken this game seriously. I think they take every game seriously. Maybe they're just kind of worn out from those 2 road games, putting up as many points as they did 2 weeks in a row, coming back home. The cold weather, they looked flat-footed. They looked a little slow. You're coming against a team that's trying to make a name for themselves. It's showing the rest of the league, that wants to show the rest of the league it's not a bad team. They don't deserve a top 5 pick. So they came out that way. But yeah, I agree. They look sluggish. Western Michigan Bills backer says D needs to put more D in the D. Absolutely. Nashville says best comparison I can think of, and Nashville shows, if you're not watching, shows Kevin McAllister from Home Alone, Macaulay Culkin, saying, looking at what's his name? Buzz's girlfriend, saying, woof. That's what Nashville says. Thank you, Nashville. Kevin Rad says, didn't feel good, but it counts. Health is more important than wins at this point. Yeah, absolutely. I'm okay with them taking it again, more conservative than you need to be. And I don't care, John, I don't care if that means giving the ball to each one of your running backs 10 to 12 times each game, at least to that end. We're talking about sitting players, but I'm okay just taking the ball out of Josh Allen's hands for a few games. Like let's make this run game dominant before we get into playoffs, and then we'll show off the play action or something like that, getting into the playoffs and pass a lot more. But now let's keep it kind of conservative.
I mean, I still got a shot at the 1 seed.
Yeah, you want to win, but yeah.
Yeah. So we'll know for sure by the last week, right? So we have a couple weeks left. We'll see how this next week goes, and then the last week, rest your guys if you're locked into the 2 seed.
The good thing is all the players on the injury report, including the players that did not suit up tonight, all those players practice in limited fashion almost the entire week. So they're getting there. It's not like there's a lot of DNPs, did not practices. The Bills are getting healthier. You just hope that they can get out of that limited fashion sooner rather than later. And, we might get half of those guys back next week. I don't know. But again, I'd rather not risk it. I'm on the same level as Kev Rads here. JT Tang says that the Bills don't want to be there and really want to move on to the playoffs, as do I. So he doesn't think the Bills really wanted to play today. They just want to get to the playoffs. Possible. Don Harder Jr. says good teams win bad games. Absolutely. At the end of the season, you don't care how many points the Bills won by. They could win 50-0, or they could win 24-21. Doesn't matter. Bills Mafia 1991 says a lucky win. Bills take advantage of the Patriots' mistakes. If the Chiefs can have a few lucky wins, so can we. Exactly. You don't have to feel guilty about this win or feel less than as a fan base. I mean, the Chiefs have done it, 14 games? So it happens. Miss T says Spector should be getting fewer snaps each week, not more. I'd rather see Buffalo Joe out there. That's a great point by Miss T. I'd rather see Buffalo Joe out there at this point. The game should not have been that close. TJ Gaines says bench Josh Allen and the starters so they're healthy for the playoffs. We're not getting that first round bye. That's also a fair point. Depends on how you like the seeding. But again, you can't plan on the seeding, right? Like you can't plan I'd rather play this team in the first round than that team. Just you got to do what's best for your team, even if it means sitting the starters and getting the 4th seed, right? I'd rather get the 2nd seed because then you get home field advantage, especially if the Chiefs get knocked off in some round in the divisional round, then you get home field advantage. So Jason Statham says, my hot take. Yeah, he had mentioned one over Twitter. I said I was going to steal it, and now I forgot what it was, Jason. My bad, buddy. But also, it's time to bench Elam. The dude is a liability. That game was really unnecessarily close. Drake Maye looked dangerous. John, quick off-the-cuff question about Kaiir Elam. Is he the biggest bust that you can remember in recent history for the Buffalo Bills? The way that he's playing, the way he hasn't developed, and the fact that he is going into his last year of his contract, his rookie deal next year, and he does not look ready whatsoever.
We're talking being he was first round pick, so gotta be up there, right?
Yeah. Even I was gonna say Cody Ford is the next one I can think of. Just underperformed, just can't do anything, can't see the field. But I mean, Kaiir Elam being a first rounder, I mean, I can't disagree with that take. Mormon 2020 says McDermott and Bass didn't screw up. Defense mostly showed up. Von running fast away from the play like a champ. Smiley. John, if there was an award for running upfield way past the quarterback outside of the pocket, Von Miller would win that award this season. he is he is elite at doing that. I know he makes some plays, but it's usually because the quarterback drops so far back that he can just run into him. It's so disappointing. I hate to put I mean, I might even consider Von Miller part of a wall of shame honorable mention. I mean, the guy's been mostly I know he makes some plays here and there that we don't see. I know he had a couple of good tackles, a tackle for loss, I think, at one point on the run play. I know he got some pressure later in the game, but I don't think he's the one that's primarily causing the pressure, if that makes sense. Like I think that the quarterback bounces out and kind of leans into him and he gets there, but I don't think he is the primary reason why he's getting the pressure, the sacks whenever he is getting them, which is very rare at this point.
I think the front four is still an issue for getting the quarterback, especially against a team that has a suspect offensive line and a young quarterback, rookie quarterback, right? Like they had to send extra guys to make May uncomfortable. So, and it's been a recurring thing. So, like, I mean, Miller in particular, it kind of stinks because when they brought him in, he was really good still, and then he got hurt, right? So, same thing like when Trey White got hurt and he came back and it wasn't quite the same. They have invested a lot in the defensive line outside of Von Miller with draft picks, and it just hasn't worked out.
Yeah.
Rousseau looks decent, but outside of that, not so much. And even then,
I think
so
Rousseau is a really solid, at least at this point in his career, a really solid second defensive end. But you need like a Von Miller in his prime across from him. And now you're talking about a duo that is scary in the NFL. But if you're relying solely on Greg Rousseau as the top edge rusher on your team, I think it's okay. I think that there's a lot of teams that have better pass rushers than the Bills have if you're relying on him solely because he's great in the run game. I think he sets the edge very well. I think Von Miller let a screen pass go right behind him. And that was disappointing to see. I don't think Von's as good as setting the edge. Jonathan Gage mentioned that, like, I feel like Von pulls attention away, which I don't disagree with. I think he does to a point. I think eventually on film, they're looking at him and they're like, we don't really need to double team Von. I don't think he's quite the guy he was at 35 that he was at 28, but I think that the Bills need another good playmaker to really optimize what they have in Greg Rousseau on the other side. Hey, puppy.
in some ways, it's like, like Phil Hansen was really great, but with Bruce Smith on the other side, I think that just made it that much better kind of thing.
That's a great point. Yeah, I think Phil Hansen. I mean, remember Mike Lodish at one point was playing really well. I think that you're right. It's because they were across from Bruce Smith. And I think that's probably the best time that Greg Rousseau looked is when Von Miller was a threat on the other side. Commandos. So our guy Big R says, hot take. Bills are kind of lucky Pats gave up in the fourth. Pats punted down 10 with 8 minutes left and then no urgency on the last drive. Wall of Fame, James Cook and the Bills D with big turnovers. Wall of Shame, injuries. Please be okay, Josh Allen. The Gettysburg and the Sweet Sassy Molassy play. Drake Maye's dumb fumble recovered for a touchdown. Yes. You can tell.
So that was a weird drive. Like the Patriots, they did the fake punt on their own like 20 something, got the first down, and then later on, and it was like 4th and 1, they punted. Like, why didn't they just go for it?
I don't know. They went for it on a fake punt and got it. By the way, that's one of the reasons I was upset at Matthew Smiley today. Is that fake punt that got through?
Yeah, like I'm not saying they should have done another fake punt. I'm thinking
yeah,
they should have straight up gone for it at that point.
You're right.
4th and 1 or whatever it was.
That would have been the smart play, I think. I think that was a win. I remember seeing on Twitter people were agreeing. They're like, this is a win for the Bills that they're not going for it. Because I think a lot of us looking at that play was like, they're probably going to get it if they go for it on 4th and 1. The way things are going. Especially when Baylon Spector was in the game.
Yeah, and you're playing against Josh Allen, so you have to like take that into account. Like you have to assume that the Bills are going to score, even though your defense has been playing well. The Patriots, they've been playing well on defense. You have to assume that a team like the Bills are going to score every drive. So and plus, what do you got to lose? You've 3 wins this season.
I know. Just go for broke, right? What are you worried about? I agree. Tightening up at the end of the game, though, that's what costs these young coaches, these young head coaches, being too conservative. Pinky says the defense has to get better. I know we're missing 4 starters, but damn. Jason Magic says Vaughn had a hell of a game. Yeah. I don't know if that's sarcasm or if he really thinks he had a hell of a game. Am I being everyone, if you're listening to this and you want to add a comment, am I being too hard on Von Miller? Because I didn't really love the way he played and don't think that he's been the same since his suspension. I was
Is it
expecting a lot
because you're
more.
thinking? Is it because you're thinking of him as a Hall of Famer, or you're thinking of him as a guy that should be, you know, a role player?
I think I was thinking of him the way he started the first few games of the season. I think his stats were much better than if you. I think I posted on Twitter at some point. I'm not going to go back and search it right now, but I think he's doing like 20, 30, 40, 50% better at a lot of stats. Tackles for losses, tackles, sacks, pressures, stuff like that. So I think he's just dropped off a lot. So I just wanted the beginning of 2024 Von Miller. I didn't expect him to go down this much, I guess, drop off this much. I thought he was going to come back angrier. I thought he was going to come back better.
I did too. Like he restructured his contract to it was all geared towards incentives and things, and it's like,
Mhm.
oh, he's really betting at himself, and yeah.
And like maybe he shouldn't have. Maybe he's not a good gambler at all. So Bronson says, funny, this doesn't feel like a victory. Divisional game or not, the Bills look bad. Allen's throwing arm appears to be hurt. All this MVP talk can quiet down some. Elam is not good. The Bills defense won't last in the playoffs. Pay James Cook. Man, there's a lot of hot takes there by Bronson.
I'm not paying any running back. Let me tell you that right now. You know my feelings about running backs.
I know your feelings about running backs. What's funny is I know you don't like to pay running backs at all. You'd rather not waste any draft picks on day 1 or day 2 on running backs because you don't like paying them or drafting them, utilizing. And I also know, though, on the other side, you love James Cook. Like you've been pounding the table for James Cook since he was drafted. You love him. And you still don't think the Bills should pay him when his contract's up, right?
No.
That's why it's funny.
During the drought, like look at all the first and second round picks they wasted on running backs. They didn't get them anywhere. Like they should have been drafting quarterbacks until they got a good one. But no, they should. And you know what they've been using like second, third round picks here and there on running backs. Like Cook was one of them. Ross was one. Uh,
Singletary was one.
Singletary was one. And I even thought that was too much to be doing all that, but no, they found Cook. I don't know. They get Ray Davis. I've always been like a dime a dozen for running backs kind of thing. Like even during the drought when they had like all these guys, they had McGahee, they got McCoy. McCoy is pretty good, but like what is it? Travis Henry was a second round pick. All these guys, and like they get Fred Jackson, undrafted guy. He's playing in Europe. They bring him on, and he's like, oh, he's amazing. He's like one of the best running backs they had during the drought, and he's undrafted. And you can say the same thing for a lot of other teams too. Like you get your Derrick Henrys, your Saquon Barkleys every once in a while, but for the most part, if you have a good line, a good coach, decent quarterback, I mean they got Josh Allen, they're going to be fine. Bring somebody in who can contribute. Multiple guys. It's not just Cook. They could Ty Johnson, their third string running back, is catching these dimes like 40 yards downfield on it's exaggeration, but you know what I mean, like 20 yards downfield. Well, who did they try to throw to that fullback in Allen's like was his rookie year or second year?
Oh,
Was it during even the playoff game maybe? Like why is he throwing it to that fullback? It might have
yeah, it
been.
was Mike Tolbert deep, wasn't it? Wasn't he like deep down and he was covered? Yeah, that's
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah,
And so it's
that
finally come to fruition. Like Ty Johnson's that guy now.
I love Ty John.
But
Yeah,
yeah, he's a third string running back, and he's making plays, running and catching. Like I've never been big on like going all out on running backs. You get everybody else, but running back I think is secondary.
very good point. Sheila, let's see, Sheila Bogey. Bogey McBurdy says played down to the level of competition, but a dub is a dub. Worried about Josh's hand. Yeah. Matthew David said can't rely on our offense to be great every week. Absolutely. Buffalo Wally says no more red jerseys. They obviously were the problem. Hey, no lies detected there, Buffalo Wally. Buffalo Wally. My bad, Buffalo Wally. Charles Byrne says, hot take. This team relies on Josh Allen, the offense, to win the game because the defense continues to lack in execution. Josh Allen needed to sit and start figuring out what happened to his hand, not to go out with less than 2 minutes to go when the game should be in the bag. Yeah, don't disagree with that. Charles, you can thank Kaiir Elam for that. 2 pass interference calls within the 20-yard line. Yeah, ended up being like 12 plays right there. Chad Labrie, I think we're going to end at, well, usually we end on AJ Tharp. Let's see. Chad Labrie says all breaks, no gas from the offense and the defense, leading to a 14-point deficit. They need to start hot and stay hot all game long, week after week. Cook was cooking, and too many calls from the refs to extending the visiting team's play. Go Bills! Happy victory Monday. Yeah, the refs were unfortunately a big part of this. Real quick from Big Mike. Hot take, Bills shouldn't sit anyone going forward. There's still plenty of things to get worked out as well as keeping the offense warm. Bills are a notoriously slow starting offense. Can't have that in the playoffs. So my counterpoint to that would be, Big Mike, is the Bills were hot the last 2 weeks and it didn't matter today. They didn't stay hot. So maybe a rest is not a bad thing. And maybe sitting people isn't a bad thing, considering they didn't sit anyone and they had issues on offense. Sweet Sassy Molassie played the game. Big Mike says, Taron Johnson. He's also the Wall of Famer, Taron Johnson. The man is literally everywhere and is the unsung hero of the defense. Absolutely. I love that one. Wall of Shame, Kaiir Elam, and the refs. Both were equally horrible the entire game. Koala Bear Khan says, an ugly game after a stretch of amazing performances against some good contenders. It's not all doom and gloom. Haven't played a home game in a while, so it could be just some execution errors, and it could be the cold. Could just saying for everyone. Glad the defense stepped up, but Allen's been taking hits since week 1. Let's see. Bill Lasso, lots of jersey talk. So let me say, MFK, Mary, love, kill, marry the all blues, F are all whites, and kill the red jerseys. Hot take is the red throwback helmets don't do as much as our throwback white helmets with a standing buffalo. That is a hot take. That's a really hot take. I do love a good white helmet with a standing buffalo, though.
Someone said something about the cold, but they also, in the very cold, they had that perfect game against the Patriots a few years back too. So I don't know if that's an excuse.
That's a good point. Yeah, the perfect game. Was it something I said? Says hot take. If God forbid we have to use Spector and Elam in any way, shape, or form, we're going to lose in the opening round of the playoffs. That's a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah,
AJ,
look at last year. They had to pull AJ Klein off the street to play to cover Travis Kelce.
I know. Benford, we've gone over this. Benford was out. Taron Johnson was out. Al Bernard was out. Rasul Douglas was banged up. Matt Milano was out. They had 4 starters out that game. AJ Tharp says, hot take. I changed jerseys at halftime from Milano to Allen. I'm not saying that's why we won, but I'm not because I'm not superstitious, but I am a little stitious. So I think I'm going to end on that, guys. Thank you so much for joining us for this recap episode of Circling the Wagons. Thousands of viewers live on this one. So thank you guys all for contributing, being a part of it. John, I think we're going to sign off and end this one, but any final thoughts before we do?
What do you think the odds that the Chiefs lose the last 2 games here? They play the Steelers, and the Steelers are still playing for something, obviously, after losing to the Ravens here. The last week they played the Broncos. The Broncos might be locked into this seed that they're at, so they might not have as much to play for. But still, that I know the Chiefs, beating them up pretty good previously, but that could be a game, maybe.
I think if the Broncos play their starters, I think it's absolutely a game. I mean, the Chiefs won in Arrowhead against the Broncos because of a blocked field goal. So I think that's definitely a game. I don't think the odds are good that they lose or that they win or they lose both games. I think it's unlikely. I think they win at least one of those games, if not both of them. But it would be, obviously, I'm rooting for that. I just don't think it'll happen. That's all. What do you think?
Me too. I was just hoping that you would think different.
convince you otherwise. No, if anything, if knowing the way that the Chiefs season is gone, the Broncos are it'll come so that the Bills win next week and the Steelers beat the Chiefs. And we're like, okay, if only the Broncos beat the
I
Chiefs.
know. And then we don't end up resting our starters that last week because of that little
Because of that
possibility.
little glimpse of hope. And then we end up,
And
exactly.
somebody gets hurt.
Somebody gets hurt.
Oh.
What happens is, the Broncos do play their starters. They beat the Chiefs, and then the Bills lose to the Patriots in New England at week 17 as some fluke or something. We're like, oh, we almost had the first seed. We almost had it. But yeah, no, guys, thank you so much for joining us. By the way, you're going to do a quick giveaway. We have just bought like Daryl Talley signed jerseys in bulk, man. So if you're ever wondering how you can win signed jersey from the Buffalo giveaway that we do each week, leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or leave us a comment somewhere on Facebook or Instagram while we're playing this live. So someone like, for example, Magical Trevcore is now on the list. Magical Trevcore. I'm adding you right now to the list of people that is eligible for this. Mario Canedo Jr., I did not have you on earlier. I'm putting you on right now. I'm literally typing you in for coming in here and being a part of this. Jonathan Gage, I had you in there earlier. I have like 20, 30, 40, 50 people in there. But if you want to subscribe to us on YouTube, leave us a comment there. It doesn't have to be live. It can be later on when we post it. But yeah, let's go. So the winner of this week's Daryl Talley signed jersey is Jonathan Gage. Jonathan, you won it. And that was not just because you have the same first name as our co-host. It is because you won. You listen each week. Dude, John.
Excited. I was excited. I was excited for a second. I thought I won for a minute.
I know, right? You're like, what, me? What? Him, me, him? John, you appreciate this. As a fellow John, you're obviously my favorite John, friend for 20 plus years at this point. Jonathan Gage leaves us like on people's Instagrams, it's usually pictures of them and their family. And Jonathan has that as well. But each week he posts a picture of our podcast, a screenshot of listening to our podcast, and gives us a quick review of it, usually obviously favorable. But he does this each week and tags us in it. Like he's been doing that at least all of this season and into the preseason and into the offseason. He's been doing this for a couple years now, but he's been consistently doing it each week. Like that's dedication. Like that is a loyal fan. And we appreciate the hell out of that, Jonathan. So I'm glad that you're winning this. Again, if you do win any of these, all you have to do is either DM us over Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, email us on Twitter or whatever, X, Twitter, whatever you want to say. Email us, ctwpod@gmail.com. And again, if you want to win, just leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Leave us a comment, subscribe, and like on Facebook, YouTube, wherever you have us. And yeah. So this was a blast. Thank you guys all for being here, for listening to this, for taking part of this victory edition of Circling the Wagons. So signing off for John. For me, Nate, go Bills. Big game next week. Let's just hope that Josh Allen is healthy and can start and play, and that hand issue is not an issue. We'll talk to you guys again next week.
Thank you for listening to the Circling the Wagons podcast. Download and subscribe to us in your favorite podcast service. Email us at ctwpod@gmail.com. That's Charlie Tango Whiskey Pod@gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter at CTWPod. And most importantly, go Bills!
Nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills.
Nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills, Nate.
Well, listen, the whole show is called Circling the Wagons. Say no more. I love it.